Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. I am your host, Deb Lutz, also known as D-Lux, and I am here to join you guys for midweek games for NBA playoffs. We've got 3 games tonight, so that's kind of cool because last night was only 2. It's more fun to play DFS with 3 as well as for watching purposes. And I'm excited to share some thoughts on the games tonight. I've been definitely watching just about every single game at this point, and there have been some interesting ones, that's for sure. I've been rooting for Sacramento, so excited that they've gone up 2-0. Unfortunately, I'm also rooting for the Suns, and that was a bummer of a game on Sunday. So I'm hoping they turn things around tonight. I'm expecting that they do. It will also be interesting to see if Cleveland can pull off a victory as the favorites against the Knicks. And then finally, we'll probably see another pummeling from Boston against Atlanta. So anyway, thanks for joining today. We got Stacks in the chat first, as always, arriving a full hour ahead of time. Stacks, thanks for joining. Absolute Power is with us today. How's it going? Happy to see you in the chat. Hope you're winning some money in these playoffs. And then Bev, my other female compadre. Thank you for joining today, Bev. Hope you're doing well. We'll check the chat as we go along, as I anticipate some more folks will be rolling in. I'm on the East Coast for a change, so it was an adjustment for me. I felt like this is happening so late in the day, but it is only 4 o'clock Eastern. We've got a few hours to go before the games start. So I will be posting lineups about 30 minutes ahead of the first game. So look for that in Discord. And other than that, I'll take you through this 3 games. I'm sure they'll have comments and questions from the folks in chat, and I'm happy to get. So let's kick things off today with the Boston-Atlanta game. So it's Atlanta in Boston. It's a 230 spread, and already Boston is favored by 10.5. Unbelievable for a playoff game. So we know what this is all about. Boston is at full strength, except Gallinari, who's been out all year, and Atlanta is at full strength as well. Boston is right now the odds-on favorites, particularly with Giannis's injury, although it does look like he's going to be coming back for game 2. But, Boston, being that they made it all the way to the finals last year, again, odds-on favorite in this division. So Atlanta's got a tough matchup and tough road ahead if they even want to get a game off of Boston. So the pricing is really interesting for this game. I think some of the Boston players are really cheap, particularly on Draftkings. Draftkings in general had some odd pricing today. You can field a pretty nice lineup because a lot of the prices have been priced down a bit. Guys who are in the 10s or in the 9s, guys who are in the 9s or in the 8s, etc. So I do like several plays on Boston. There's really, honestly, in the starting 5, I like everybody, but not going to play everybody. In a blowout scenario, I think some of your guys like Brown and a Tatum are going to get a few less minutes. And when they're priced as high as they are, a few less minutes definitely hurts. Look to save those big price Boston guys for the next series. So I'm not going to be playing a lot of Brown or Tatum. What I'm looking at is some of the other key guys in the Boston lineup being Marcus Smart, Derek White, Al Horford, and Brogdon. And just depending on what site and what position, I'm going to a combination of them. I tend to like all of them, to be honest. I think in particular, White on DK is way too cheap at 5,300. He's really emerged this year and has a lot of offensive weapons. Marcus Smart, his numbers were down a little bit during the season, but he was injured a bit. He's back, full strength, and, playoffs are his time to shine, and particularly against, backcourt that includes Trae Young. A lot of opportunities for stocks, and he had a great first game, and I expect that to continue. And then, the one guy who did not have a great first game was Brogdon. He only played 18 minutes. and they really didn't need him. So, the question is, does he come back for this game and play more minutes and play a little better? He is a strong point per minute guy. So, if you think that they're going to need him a little more, he's someone to look at who's going to be a little bit lower owned than some of the other guys. And then Horford. They did play Horford 38 minutes. And while his usage was really low, he was a key piece to that defense. He started over Williams. I expect him to start again tonight. He had 2 blocks and a steal. He also hit a couple of threes. So even though his usage is low, he's pretty efficient and pretty productive and not a bad price point for that center position. So again, across the board, lots to like on the Boston side. Of course, you're going to get your most usage in Tatum and Brown. Again, just given this slate tonight, if I'm paying up, I'm interested in guys on teams who have fewer go-to options. And on this team, I think there are so many. And like I said, against Atlanta, they may be, taking a couple of fewer minutes at the end of the game if it's a blowout. On the Atlanta side of things, not as much to like. So Trae Young, he's going to get the most usage. He's the star. The problem is against Marcus Smart. I mean, he's going to be completely inefficient. Last game, he threw up 18 shots, only made 5 of them. He didn't get to the line very much. He had a number of turnovers. It's just not a great matchup for Trae Young. Now, that being said, the guy is money, so I'm sure he's going to be bringing it tonight. His pricing is not bad. His ownership is low. So, maybe in a GPP, he becomes an interesting guy. I just don't think you can trust him to pull off a 45, 50-point night against Boston. On the other hand, DeJounte Murray, a little bit more under the radar screen. He did not shoot particularly well either, but he will get you more steals and possibly blocks. And he is a lot cheaper than Trae Young. So a little bit more attractive. Personally, I'm probably not going to either of these guys tonight. Again, on the Atlanta side, I'm probably looking more towards some of the lower price guys. I actually think this is a good spot for Clint Capella. Centers usually do reasonably well against Boston. And Capella, he only played 27 minutes, and again, lower usage, but he was 6 of 8 on his shots. He had 8 rebounds. He had a steal. I'm expecting, against this team, I would love to see Capella, get a block or 2. And a little bit more usage could get him another 5 or 6 fantasy points, and then he'd be smashing value. Again, I think, I get against this Boston team, he can definitely put up some numbers, certainly get some rebounds. So I'd like to see him kind of double and get 10 points and 10 rebounds and maybe a block and smash that number. And he's someone that I am looking at probably in a GPP. The other guys on Atlanta that I like are Bogdanovich. I think he's the first guy off the bench for points. So he'll be getting the majority of the usage in the second team. And as long as he's hitting his shot, he should be good to smash value. He's less than 5K on DK and just above 5K on Draftkings or on Fanduel. And then lastly, I may take a run at John Collins as well. This is the guy who really should be playing well against Boston. I think he's got a good game for a matchup with a Horford, and he really, he never plays. He's someone that I rarely played during the regular season. His price keeps going down and down. But he's someone that I'm eyeing for, he did play well. I think it was two years ago in the playoffs. He tends to get a little bit of a fire lit under him. And I'm hoping that happens tonight and they get him some easy buckets. And at the price that he's at and the ownership, I really like him. So speaking of ownership, let's take a look at that real quickly for this game. Because I think that definitely has an impact. On DraftKings, I mentioned Derek White being too cheap. He is 45% owned at that 5,300. So, he's chalky, but that's pretty good chalk to eat. On the other hand, Jason Tatum at 40% ownership is chalk that I don't want to eat. He's almost 10K, 9,800. So if you think about it, even at 50 points, that's only a 5X. And I think we can do better elsewhere tonight. So not going there. Brown is right behind him, 34%, 8,500. And then there's Horford at 33%, 5,500. John Collins, who I mentioned earlier, he is at 26%, but again, at $4,600, I think, he has a low, does he have a high ceiling? His ceiling's not that great, but his floor is really pretty solid at, kind of those low 20s. And so even that at low 20s, you're talking about 5X. He does have upside to get to 6, 7X against this lineup. And then looking down, if we go to the bottom, just taking a look, DeJounte Murray, as I mentioned. So he is 5.5% owned. He's far and away the lowest. Trae Young is at 8%, but he's only 8,000 for Murray. So something to think about. I am probably not going to go there, but that's certainly really low ownership at that price. Okay, so let's take a look quickly on Fanduel and see if there's anything different. In this case, you've got Al Horford, number one, at 42% ownership because he has 5,700. That's a fair price on Horford. Tatum at 10.8 is 33%, and Brown at 9.2 is 33%. So again, really high ownership on these two guys. I mean, they're going to smash, no doubt, against this team. They are going to, have a lot of usage and do a lot of scoring. But again, like I said, I'm looking more towards guys like a Durant or a Kawhi, where you just don't have the supporting cast that you do on Boston. And I think those games are going to be closer and harder fought and more reason for them to step up. Nothing too different here. Bogdanovich, lowest owned at 5,500, along with Robert Williams. Those are the only two guys who are less than 10K. All right, so let's see what's going on in the chat. Hey, Boy from Cali is joining us. How's it going, man? Happy to see you. You had a big win the other night. That was awesome. Hope it's another good night for you. And Trae should have a bounce back game. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's tough to count him out. But we just have to remember the defense he's playing against. So I do think one of Trae or Murray will have a decent game. I just don't know. And Trae. Trae's numbers have been down a bit this season. He's not he plays a little bit of a different game with Murray in there. They kind of step on each other a little bit. And I think that's impacted him overall. And even if you look at, how he played against Miami when they won, he only scored 40 fantasy points. So he's tough to hit value. He's only hit value I think like 3 times in the past 15 games. So that's the only watch out that I'd say for Trae. That being said, he's sort of the man when it comes to the playoffs, but that's pretty much why I'm not going after him. So Bev's wanting to know who my favorite stud today is. Yeah, it's a toss-up between Durant and Kyrie. I was at the game Sunday night. It was an incredible game. I'm so bummed. The refs are really the ones that lost it for the Suns. But the Suns did play pretty lousy in the first quarter. But I think a couple of things. Kawhi is like a one-man wrecking crew on that team. He's so awesome. The Suns definitely have to figure out a way to double him up. They'll probably do that today. That being said, they were doing it a little bit towards the end of the last game, and they can't double him. I mean, he gets out of double teams like nobody I've ever seen. So he's pretty incredible. And I fully expect that he's going to be, he played like 42 minutes. I think that happens again. And I think he's got just a ton of usage. On the flip side, I love Kevin Durant. I think Durant needs to take this team on his shoulders. They've proven that they're good with him. But Sunday was the first game they had lost, I think, since he's joined the team and played. He's going to take that personally. He knows, it's all on the line because they're supposed to be so good now that he's joined, and he's got to get it done. They didn't use him quite enough early in the game. They need to do it more, and I think he has a really big night. So they are my two favorite studs, more so than Tatum, more so than Randall, more so than Trey. All right. So let's go to the next game. Okay, we've got New York and Cleveland. This one is like 214 is the total here. So you're talking about 12 points less than the night game and 16 points less than the Atlanta-Boston game. So big difference there. We saw this being a pretty decent matchup between these two teams, with New York taking the first game. I think at home, Cleveland comes back. I think they win this one outright. It is a 5.5 point spread with Cleveland favored. That's a pretty decent sized spread, actually. Right now, Josh Hart is questionable. He was actually doubtful earlier today. They've upgraded him, so it's likely that he plays, I guess, but definitely something to watch out for because that has a big impact. He was the big guy in the first game off the bench, whereas Quickly didn't do too much off the bench. So interesting to see if that stays the same or if that reverses course. Definitely some guys I like here, more so on the Cavs side than the Knicks side. Again, I think the Cavs are going to take this one. I think they're going to figure out how to get more out of their big men in particular. Mitchell had an amazing first game. I think he'll also have a very good game, but I think they're going to focus a little bit more on him. So leave some more opportunities for Mobley. And even Garland did not have a great game in his first game. And so I expect that they're going to try and get him a little in this next game here. So anyway, we've got for Cleveland. I'll tell you who I particularly like. And Garland is pretty inexpensive on both Fanduel and Draftkings. I like him better on Fanduel because he's relatively less expensive than some other guys, whereas on DK, while his pricing is down, it's not as good of a correlation versus some other players who I like a little better tonight. So I like him on Fanduel. Mitchell's, he's going to get huge usage, huge minutes. The question is, does New York have a way to stop him? He's played pretty well against them this year, but I think they've got to figure that out, and they're probably going to put throw a little more at him, which hopefully will get some of the other guys involved. So I'm probably not going to go towards Mitchell, but it's not a bad play to do that. I think he's going to have a solid night. Mobley, I think, will have a better game. He only shot 4 of 13, which is pretty weak for Mobley. So I do think he has a better game. I think he gets a couple of stocks, which will help his game as well. And I do like him, but I probably like Allen a little bit better. He's cheaper. He's going to get at least 40 minutes. He's played better against the Knicks this year. And from an ownership standpoint, I think they're pretty similar. Let's see. On DraftKings, you've got Jared Allen. I mean, he's only 6,500, so he's at 37% ownership. But Mobley at 7,100 is 28% ownership. So Allen's a little bit higher, but again, that's a pretty decent price differential for two guys who could pretty much score the same. Fantasy-wise. And then on Fanduel, Allen is at 7,200 and 46% ownership, and Mobley right behind him at 41% ownership and 7,500. So again, pretty close together. And this is where I'm leaning towards Allen because he is a little bit less expensive, and I think he's going to play a couple more minutes, and he has been more successful. That being said, Mobley for kind of to play a little contrarian. Not a bad play either, but they're getting fairly similar ownership. The other guy, Levert, is really inexpensive. On Fanduel, he's at 4,800 and he's getting 27% ownership. And then on DK, he is 4,300 and getting 24% ownership. The thing about Levert is, usually when we see Levert have great games, it's when one of either Garland or Mitchell are out. When both of them are in, he does not play as well. And so, unfortunately, I don't want to get caught in that trap where, he's cheap, so I'm going to put him in. He didn't play a ton of minutes, and he doesn't have a great game versus New York. So I am staying away from Levert in this game. On the other side of things, similarly, I'm staying away from Barrett. Barrett does not play particularly well against Cleveland. They have a really tough defense. They throw a Cora at him. I'm not going there. The guys I like are Brunson and Randall. The thing about Randall, though, is he is priced pretty high. And again, versus some of the other guys, like a Kawhi, I just like, I like him better, Kawhi better. Taking a look to see where he's priced on TK. The other thing about Randall is he's just coming back from injury. Played pretty well in the first game, but as a low-scoring game, I just I don't love that option quite as much. I think Brunson's the guy who I'm most interested in. 7,900 on DK, and on FanDuel he is where is he? 8,500. I just think he's had some great games this year against Cleveland. I think one game he scored over 60 points. I think he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, and I like going to him. So the other guy is Hart. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if he plays, he's another guy. I think he plays an important role, 6-man off the bench. I think he'll get a lot of minutes and be able to hit his mid-range number. So. All right, so a little less interest there in that game. I'm probably going to go for, in this game, two guys probably, mostly on Cleveland. Maybe take a look at Brunson or Hart on the New York side of things. All right, so before we get to the last game, let's check and see what's going on. Absolute Power likes KD as well. He went to U of A. Yeah, Absolute Power. That's awesome. All right, so he likes Phoenix, although he's a Knicks fan. Well, I'm from the East Coast, New Jersey originally, and lived in New York for a number of years, and we had Knicks season tickets. So my husband's from New York, so we were Knicks fans for a period of time, but I just can't stand that organization. So now we're Phoenix fans. Anyway, Crash is sending out a reminder. There is an announcement in Discord from Coach. So if those of you who are members can go to Discord after this podcast and check out the announcement. And Boy from Cali, thanks. Josh Hart expected to play. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. So I don't exactly know what the injury is though. So just want to make sure that he's at 100% or close enough that he's going to be able to play full minutes and play as well as he did in that first game. But otherwise, if that's the case, full speed ahead. All right. Rounding things out with my Suns facing the Clippers. This is a do or die game for them. And boy, was I disappointed. Phoenix is favored by 8. Boy, I don't know about that. I mean, the way the Clippers played, Phoenix was up by 8 maybe for about a minute. Other than that, it was a close game. And so I like that spread though, but we'll see if that happens. 226 is the over under. Paul George is still out, which, this is why Phoenix should absolutely win. I mean, they're playing the Clippers without Paul George. And for Phoenix, Campaign is still questionable. They're definitely missing Campaign. I hope they figure out tonight, who their other ball handler is and how that works out. But the second team was abysmal on Sunday night. So I think it's a must win for Phoenix. And as I mentioned, I think Kevin Durant demands the ball, and has even higher usage than he did the last game. I really like him here. I think the pricing is fair. He he had a great first game, and I think it's only going to get better. He had 62 fantasy points in the first game, playing 45 minutes. I don't know if he'll go quite that many minutes, but the guy just has such a great game. I mean, he almost had a triple double, and so I think he'll definitely have another great game. I can't really play Durant and Booker, and since I've decided to go with Durant, I probably won't be getting to any Booker. I think Booker has a little bit less upside against this team, and he is priced a little bit lower. So if you can't fit in Durant, I think Booker is a decent backup. Although honestly, I'd probably go with like a Mitchell versus Booker in this series. The other guy who had a decent amount of usage in this first game and looked great was Torrey Craig. They really need him. They need him defensively, and he showed up pretty well offensively as well. So I'm probably going to go. It's a good chance I'm going to go back there again because he's not priced to be playing as a starter. It was a surprise that he started. I think a lot of people thought Okogie would start, but they only played Okogie 7 minutes, and really wondering what's going on there. And he did not play well. Only put up one shot, didn't make it, wasn't really involved at all in the offense or the defense. So something's up there. But I'm not expecting him to play so many minutes in this game. So I do like Craig a lot. And then the other guy that I like, believe it or not, is Chris Paul. So Chris Paul missed a triple double in the first game because he didn't score enough. And he wasn't making his classic, mid-range jump shot that he usually does. He was only 2 of 8. I think that gets better. I think he still dishes out double-digit assists. I think he gets a couple of steals. I think he's a little bit more involved. His usage was only 11%. I think he's got to be a little bit more involved in this game for them to win. So I like him as well. Not going to go after Ayton. I think Ayton can put up solid numbers, but there's a lot of other centers that I think can hit value more easily. And then I'm not really going towards any of their bench either. The bench just looked really, really bad. And until Monty figures something out, I just can't trust it. On the other hand, with the Clippers, I thought their bench looked fantastic. I think their bench actually looked better than their first team. No doubt Kawhi is the guy to go to in this game. His pricing, yes, it is above 10K. But like I said, he was a one-man show. He had over 30% usage. He played 42 minutes. He was lights out. He's great at the line. He rebounds. He assists. He does it all. So don't fear putting Kawhi in your lineup at all. Westbrook, on the other hand, I struggle with Westbrook a lot. He's going to get you some decent fantasy numbers. He had a great game, to be honest. He had 3 blocks, 2 steals. I don't think he had double-double. I don't think he had 10 assists, but he had a large number of assists, 5 rebounds, but he shot like 20%. I mean, he shot, I think, 3 of 19. So, and that's going to happen. He's going to shoot the second most shots on the team. He looked terrible. The Suns are giving him the outside shot. He wasn't making it. So, he's definitely a high upside player. But someone I just personally don't like him. So I don't want to play him, but he does have a lot of upside. His pricing, I think is fair. It's $8,200 on Fanduel. I think that's a really decent price. The one thing that you want to watch out with him are his turnovers. Very turnover prone, but he played a key role in the defense, and he's going to be out there. He's $7,800 on Draftkings. So just FYI, it's a matter of, all right, do you go with like a Garland or do you go with a Westbrook? Westbrook's going to play a big role on this team. I just think he's, for me, he's more of a GPP type play. And all right. The other guys to look at, Gordon, he's going to be the guy that they leave open. Unfortunately, if they double Kawhi and they swing the ball around, Gordon's going to get some open threes. And he's been hitting them. So at 4,400, not a bad play. I also think the centers are going to do pretty well against the Suns because, the reality is the Suns have no inside presence, and Zubac had a ton of rebounds against them. I think that could happen again. He's pretty inexpensive, 5K, and if you go down even further, Plumlee's going to get 15 to 20 minutes. He's a really good point per minute guy. So if you need a fill-in at 4K, he's probably one of the best values on the slate in my mind today, like in that sort of 4K and under range. Okay, so let's check and see what everyone's up to. Earl's joined us. Hey, Earl Pep Tyson, how's it going? Favorite backup center today? Yeah, I think it's Plumlee. I think let me go to center position, all games here. I think you could consider Okongwu as well, 4,200. He had an off game last game, but let's take a look. It's a really good question because Robert Williams technically is a backup center as well. Let's take a look at the minutes that Williams had in the last game, because Williams can certainly put up some nice numbers. If I can get back to that. He particularly on Fanduel with his blocks. He's projected for 23 minutes. Hartenstein is projected for 21. Plumlee is projected for 17, so slightly fewer minutes. I certainly wouldn't go after any of the backup centers on Cleveland, nor would I go after the ones on Phoenix. And then Okongwu is projected for 19 minutes. So I think, given the projections on Okongwu and how he played and his pricing, I wouldn't go there. I would either go with Williams or, like I said, Plumlee. I think Plumlee is going to be super low owned. And he's only, let's see, I think he's 4K. So you're really saving a lot of money. Let's check it out here. So So from an ownership perspective, the lowest owned centers are Landale and Biyombo, and I wouldn't go to either of them. Batum qualifies at center, but he had no offensive game whatsoever. He just didn't look like it was a great matchup against Phoenix. And then you go down. Mitchell Robinson actually has lower ownership, and he's only 5,400. So that's not a bad play at all, frankly, Mitchell Robinson, but he's not a backup center. You're looking really more at Plumlee at 4K and Robert Williams at 4,900. So if you really only have 4K to spend, I'd go Plumlee over Hartenstein. All right. So best 5 Fanduel plays on value. All right, let's take a look. Positions here. Fanduel. All games. Salary. Okay, so I'm going to look under 4,500 and give you, because I think once we get out of that range, you're kind of getting out of the value area. If Cam Payne plays, 3,800 is great. I just think it's probably about less than 50% that he plays. So keep an eye out for that. I mentioned Plumlee. So Plumlee at 4,500 is a good value play. Probably the best valuable play down there, though, is Eric Gordon at 4,600. I'd say that's a super solid play, as well as Torrey Craig at 4,700. You also have Isaiah Hartenstein at 4,500. It's really tough to these guys aren't really cheap enough, and you've got some guys in that high 4s, low 5s. I wouldn't risk spending money on like a Bones Highland or an Obi Toppin or Biombo. As you've seen these with these games in the playoffs, they are really shortening their benches. So anyone on the second team has to be a really strong points per minute guy, or they're not gonna be able to hit even money on a $3,900 salary. So I wouldn't go too low. I think those are some solid value plays, the ones that I gave you, because they're all under 4,800, but I wouldn't go any lower than that. All right. So I think that's all, guys. 3 games, not a lot, but lots of good plays to be had. And I'm going to say go Suns tonight, and go Cleveland, and go Coach Talk family. Let's win big. All right. So look for those lineups in Discord, and tune in tomorrow for MLB with Crash, and we'll have more lineups for the NBA, and watch us as we look to crush it in fantasy DFS. Take care, guys.